Welcome back to Mo-Tip. Today. We're covering a heartbreaking case of Emma Jangestig. Emma Jangestig was born on February 16, 1985 in Stockholm, Sweden. She grew up in a modest family as the younger of two sisters. Emma spent most of her childhood and youth in Stockholm, where she was known for being a kind and caring individual. She led a fairly typical life, marked by close family bonds and a strong connection with her sister Katarina. In her teenage years, Emma met Nicholas, who would become her high school sweetheart. Their relationship blossomed and they decided to marry when Emma was just 19 years old. At the time of their marriage, Emma was already expecting their first child, Max. Shortly after, at the age of 20, Emma became a mother. A year and a half later, she gave birth to a daughter, Saga. After the separation, Emma became involved in a bitter custody battle with Nicholas, who wanted to be actively involved in their children's lives. Although Emma was open to Nicholas having a role in their children's upbringing, the situation became more complicated when she started a new relationship with Tony Hellberg. Emma decided to move with her children to Arboga, a small town about 150 kilometers from Stockholm, to live with Tony. This move intensified the custody conflict with Nicholas, who was unhappy about the increased distance from his children. On March 17, 2008, a typical Monday, Tony left for work early, leaving Emma at home with their 3-year-old son Max and 1.5-year-old daughter Saga. In the evening, as Emma prepared dinner, she awaited Tony's return and chatted online with her sister Katarina about a gift for their parents' upcoming wedding anniversary. At around 6:30 p.m., Tony called Emma to let her know he was running late and said they could start dinner. After the brief call, Emma resumed her chores, fed the kids, and then returned to her computer to continue messaging Katarina at 7:07 p.m. There her conversation was abruptly cut off mid-sentence. Katarina found this odd as she saw Emma typing but never sending the message. 5 minutes later, Katarina called Emma but got no response. She then reached out to Tony to check on the situation. Tony, who was on his way home, assured Katarina that everything was likely fine and that Emma might be preoccupied with the children. He said Emma would call back as soon as she could. When Tony arrived home, he was startled to find the front door open. Inside, he noticed a mess, assuming it was from the children playing. However, he soon spotted brown stains and realized with horror that it was blood. He called out for Emma and the kids, but no one answered. In the hallway, he found what he initially thought was a doll, lying in an unnatural position. As he got closer, he realized it was Saga, lying in a pool of blood, with her head and face severely disfigured. Nearby, her brother lay in a similarly horrific condition, with a fractured skull. Their mother was also on the floor, covered in blood, her face shattered and disfigured. Overcome with shock, Tony called emergency services with trembling hands and reported the scene. At that moment, Emma shuddered and emitted a loud groan. Police officers and paramedics immediately arrived on the scene and found a weak pulse in all 3 victims, quickly beginning resuscitation. The scene was horrifying. No one understood what kind of beast could do this to a young woman and her children, but saving their lives was the priority. So all efforts were focused on getting the victims to the nearest hospital for assistance. From the outset, paramedics expressed doubts about whether the victims could be brought to the hospital alive. However, all three were still alive when they arrived at the medical facility. They were diagnosed with open head injuries, severe brain damage, and extensive blood loss. No prognosis was given by the doctors, but they did the best they could. Max and Saga were in critical condition. Even if their lives could be saved, it was unlikely they would ever breathe on their own. Emma's condition was assessed as very serious but stable. The young woman was put into a medically induced coma and connected to life support machines, hoping her body could cope, while doctors fought for the lives of the victims. Forensic experts worked at the scene, trying to find clues and reconstruct the crime. Inside the house, chaos reigned, scattered belongings, blood on the floor and walls. Unfortunately, the medics had left behind a lot of clutter, moving items around to access the victims. The floor where Emma, Max, and Saga lay was trampled on, and now the medics had to figure out which footprints belonged to them and if the perpetrator's prints were there. Remarkably, the intruder had massacred the victims in at most 13 minutes. As the last message from Emma to her sister was sent at 7:07 p.m. and at 7:20 p.m., a call was made to the police by a frightened Tony. The brutality of the massacre indicated a personal motive and deep dislike. The weapon, presumably a hammer, was not found at the scene, suggesting the perpetrator took it with them. From the start, Tony was the prime suspect. He was not married to Emma and was not the father of her children, leading to speculation of a domestic quarrel. However, Tony had an ironclad alibi, confirmed by his boss and CCTV footage. After questioning, Tony was released. The new suspect was Emma's ex-husband, Nicholas. They had been divorced for over a year and constantly quarreled over custody of the children. Nicholas was tracked down and taken into custody, but he seemed crushed by the news of Max and Saga's deaths. He claimed he was away on business, and his alibi was soon confirmed. Forensic investigators remained active at the scene, trying to find any evidence or traces of the attacker. The perpetrator had worn gloves and left no fingerprints. Identifying the shoe prints was difficult due to the many visitors to the house. Law enforcers feared the criminal might sneak into the hospital to finish what he had started. Therefore, a 24-hour guard was posted outside Emma's room. Neighbors were interviewed in search of possible witnesses. One recalled seeing a stranger in black clothes around Emma's house. The figure was short and fragile, possibly a girl. The same figure was captured by a street surveillance camera. Nicholas identified the figure as his ex-girlfriend, Christina Schurrer. Christina had a troubled past and was obsessed with Nicholas. She had stalked him and tried to resume their relationship multiple times. Detectives quickly located Christina's address. Her roommate said Christina had packed her things and returned to Germany. On March 20th, a warrant was issued for her arrest. Christina was arrested and claimed she had nothing to do with the crime. Her apartment was searched, and her phone and laptop were seized. Investigators found disturbing evidence on her laptop, including photos of Emma and her children with threatening remarks. The search history revealed queries on how to commit murder without leaving traces. Emma's condition eventually stabilized, and doctors decided to begin waking her from the medically induced coma. When she awoke, she was unable to speak but recognized her family members. Once Emma could speak clearly, the police interviewed her. Christina Schurrer, the woman whose obsession turned deadly, now spends her days behind bars. Her story serves as a chilling reminder of how far unrequited love and a disturbed mind can go. Despite the heinous nature of her crimes, Christina remains a figure of intrigue. Her actions dissected and analyzed by psychologists and criminologists alike. Her case continues to be studied as experts seek to understand the complexities of her psyche and the motivations behind her brutal actions. While justice served, the scars left by her actions, the courtroom was tense, filled with anticipation. Christina stood before the judge, her fate hanging in the balance. After hours of deliberation, the verdict was finally delivered. Guilty. The words echoed through the room, sealing her fate. In the days that followed, the dust began to settle. Emma started her road to recovery, while Christina faced the reality of her new life behind bars. Repercussions of their choices rippled through their lives, forever altering their paths. Share your thoughts in the comments below. Until next time, stay safe